everybody, DeathsStalker here. So I thought I'd tell you another little interesting story of me hanging out with some of my police buddies. And this goes way back to the early 1980s. My buddy was now a police officer working for the city and doing okay, and actually several of my friends from school were there as well. It was kind of weird because a lot of the guys I went to school with became police officers and were located in the area I lived at the time. So a lot of times I'd have you know, I'd see somebody in the police car come by, and the guy'd see me and he waved, you know. And in fact, one of the guys I worked with was certain I was a narc, because I'd be coming into work and a police car would pull up and honk, and I'd lean into the yak with one of my buddies. And it's like, nope, just talking to some of my friends. And so what happened was, in one area I used to live, there's sort of a, not so much a conservation area, but it's an area they're trying to basically keep from being abused, and that was the Red Hill Creek area. And it's kind of weird. It got protected from being abused, so they could put a highway through the middle of it years later, but that's beside the point. That's another story. And what they had a problem with was people riding dirt bikes in that area, like in the valley. And there was like subdivisions around there, and people were complaining about having these you know, kids and guys on dirt bikes riding through the woods down there. And so what the police were doing was they were going down there in old dirt bikes, you know, dual purpose bikes, like, you know, you can ride them on the street or on the on the dirt. And the problem is the police would try to pull up, and the guys would just sort of laugh at them and take off, because the bikes they had were crap. And that's basically because what they were using was the motorcycles that had been seized, and when they went up for auction, nobody bought them because they knew they were junk. So they'd have the mechanics from the police garage sort of get them running, and that's what they were using. So they were getting kind of stymied on it. Now, at the time, I was racing motocross, and I was actually not bad at it. And my buddy had mentioned about the fact that I got this nice shiny new Kawasaki KLR600. I'll put a picture of it right there. And they were kind of hoping I would come out there with them and just ride around and see if any of the guys on dirt bikes would just sort of like stop to talk to me or whatnot, and then they could just swoop in and bust them all. And at the time I went like, I get a chance to ride a place I'm not supposed to. It's like, sure, I'll do that. So I figured they probably wouldn't catch too many people anyways. So I'm out one day off, we were out there and riding around, and my one buddy's there, and another guy I went to school with, who basically told his sergeant that he knew how to ride a motorcycle, and no, he didn't. We were actually trying to teach him how to ride a dirt bike and not kill himself in the process. So we're riding around, and not, we could hear the bikes, but we couldn't really see them. Okay, just trying to figure out why he's riding the wrong side of the road there. And so we're actually just sitting there talking, and two guys on dirt bikes go riding up to us to see, hey, where are you guys riding? And my two buddies just sort of like smiled, pulled the badges out, and they wrote them up tickets for being in a prohibited area. It's called, this is like a city bylaw thing. And you know, rode around a little more, and they managed to get some other guy who did the same thing, and you know, so they were pretty happy. They got themselves a couple of tickets, so they proved the boss it was good. And so the guy who didn't know how to ride was just, he kept falling down. So we knew there was this little sand pit where some of the guys with motocross bikes would go. So we went over there, and I'm sort of showing the guy how to ride in the sand and how to ride the bike without falling over and all that sort of stuff. And they're sort of chilling, taking it easy. The guy, and then now we're sort of sitting there watching my buddy who didn't know how to ride around and around the sand trip, because that's how you learn stuff. And you know, he'd fall over and he'd pick himself up and he'd do it some more and all that stuff. And eventually he was actually not sucking too badly now, and he actually looked like he was knew what he was doing. So we're finally going like, okay, it's like lunchtime, let's get something to eat. And he's like, okay. So he's just like dusting off his jacket and all that sort of stuff, and he goes, where's my gun? We just sort of went, what? His gun had fallen out of his holster. Now, before anybody goes like, you know, oh, you know, what's going on here? It's like, this is I'm going to say 84, 85. The police were still using revolvers. The holsters they had were from the 1950s. I kid you not, because my buddy's father, who was a sergeant, I saw his holster, and I was flipping through a gun magazine from 1950, and that's when it was being sold for like $9.95, and that's the type of holster he'd been using. And apparently he got issued that in like 1965, and he had never changed it. You know, high-tech stuff you see nowadays and take for granted just didn't exist. So anyways, he you know, stopped everything and went in the sand and looked around and all that stuff, and eventually he found his little revolver, and it was just absolutely caked in sand. And like, imagine if you went to the beach and made a sandcastle model of a revolver. That's what it looked like. It was horrid. And of course my buddy, who knew how to ride a bike, just started laughing at him, says, I hope the sergeant's not going to ask to do an inspection today, because apparently every day they went out on patrol, they got inspected to make sure they had their ticket book, all their radios, and their shoes were shined, they had their hat and all that sort of stuff, and they checked to make sure the guns were clean. So he was like trying to clean his gun up as best he could. He says he's got to go back to the station. So the end result was he went back to his station and actually talked to the gunsmith in the station to clean his gun for him, because it was horrible. It had to come completely apart. If you tried pulling the trigger, it wouldn't even, the revolver wouldn't even rotate. So it was messed up. And my buddy and I, we went for lunch and had a good time. So basically, riding off-road with the police is all good and fun until somebody loses their gun. Hope you enjoyed that one. DeathsStalker, signing off.